A lot of people really damage their chances of reconciliation within their first meeting with their ex or their partner after a separation or a breakup. A lot of people walk in terrified, desperate, and operating on pure emotion, almost like a high-stakes negotiation. And a lot of the times, this conversation can actually push them further away. So in today's video, I want to give you a blueprint for your very first post-separation or breakup meeting. I'm going to break down everything that you need to know in order to lay down the groundwork for true reconciliation. So I can completely understand why it can feel nerve-wracking, whether you've gone through a breakup or a separation or even just a tough time in the relationship. This first sort of conversation can feel massive. It can feel like it's the most important conversation to have and you have kind of everything to prove. But this is kind of the first mistake to avoid, which is having this idea that there's some sort of magic bullet. It is a massive mistake treating this single meeting as some sort of magic bullet that is going to instantly fix the entire relationship because of something that we call expectancy bias. So your partner or your ex-partner is going to walk into this meeting expecting you to be the exact same person that they left or that they are separated from. Because of this bias, this is a common bias within every human being. Because of this bias, their emotional defenses are going to be sky high and their nervous system is going to be wired to push back on you or the relationship at the slightest hint of pressure. So it's kind of like a hair trigger. So the first thing to make sure that you do is get rid of any agenda that you have. Go into the meeting, go into the conversation or the phone call, whatever it is, expecting coldness, expecting resistance, expecting pushback. It's important not to scrabble around trying to find some grand reunion or immediate validation on you. And this means that when you're having this conversation, don't say things like, can we not just forget about things? Can we not just put things behind us? Can we not just try again? Instead of saying things like that, make sure that you are positively reinforcing the current action, which is having the conversation. So saying things like, I'm just glad that we can sit down and we can have a coffee and we can catch up. The reason why it's important to do this is because removing the pressure of the conversation disarms their nervous system. When your ex or your partner realizes that you're not there to try to force something to happen, to force a reconciliation, this starts to undo this expectancy bias, this bias that your partner has towards the relationship. And it plants kind of a seed in their mind that it means that they can stop fighting the old version of you and they're having to look at the new version of you, the new control version, the person who has more potential for a relationship with. So that kind of lays the groundwork for the mindset going into the conversation. But it's really important to avoid the biggest kind of conversational landmine that destroys attraction, which is this interrogation trap that people fall for during these conversations. So there can be this kind of impulse to make the entire conversation an autopsy of the relationship or a desperate hunt for some sort of status update on the relationship, demanding to know where things stand or asking about how they feel now or if they're seeing somebody else. This kind of screams insecurity and it kind of pushes for a need for control over the situation. So it's important to give yourself an embargo on any sort of major relationship talk. Avoid any sort of questions about their dating life, their feelings about the breakup, the future of us, keeping the conversation grounded strictly in the present moment. It's important to really focus on high-value conversation. The reason is that hyper-focusing on the signals of the relationship, trying to read the tea leaves or predict in the stars how the relationship is, it kind of signals that your entire world is on pause, just kind of waiting for them. The more you shift the focus away from the breakup and onto them as an individual, as a human being, you actually demonstrate emotional independence. So you're emotionally independent of the relationship. And it allows you to focus on them as an individual, as a human being that just exists in the world. This is one of the biggest reattraction killers that I see when people are trying to repair a relationship, which is constantly talking about the relationship. Now, this may seem useful, but all this usually does is drag up the past and constantly show that all you ever think about is the relationship. And without the relationship, it kind of feels like you're nothing. You have nothing else going on for you. And you're constantly just desperate to see what the next step is between you and your partner. Whereas if you think about how you start a relationship, conversations aren't about the relationship. They're about what you have in common. They're about you connecting on their emotions, on their experiences, and vice versa. The more you keep that conversation focused on the connection points, rather than constantly focusing on the status of the relationship, the more you actually rebuild attraction and build what we call the emotional environment for the relationship to be implied. So during this meeting or this conversation, once you've successfully steered clear of the relationship autopsy, then it's important to start using the communication tools in your tool belt in order to rebuild the emotional environment, which is validation. So during these conversations, because expectancy bias is high and your partner still is expecting the old version of you to be there, conversations about the relationship may get raised. Conversations about how you acted may get raised. The defensive reflex to argue or to explain away or minimize your partner or your ex's feelings about the separation, about the relationship, can be quite high. But the second you start to get defensive, you start to give excuses, you start to explain away the situation, you kind of reinforce every bad thought that they've ever had about you. You kind of reinforce that the future of this relationship may not be worth pursuing. So it's really important to start to learn how to radically validate. So we speak a lot about validation on the channel and how important it is as a communication skill. But validation is essentially being able to listen, being able to focus on what your partner is feeling and be able to lean directly into the reasons why they feel the way that they do, even if it hurts your ego. So being able to validate their reality without turning it into some sort of apology tour or defensiveness or talking about yourself. So let's say, for example, your partner says, you know, you really hurt me with the things that you said in the relationship. Instead of defending yourself, saying, well, I did that because I didn't realize that I was hurting you, or, you know, I said hurtful things because I felt hurt, rather than getting defensive or coming up with some reasons about why you did something, being able to actually lean into what they're saying. For example, I completely understand why you would feel hurt. You know, I think back and I think that if I were in your position, I would feel hurt as well. I would feel like this person is not on my team because of some of the things that I said, some of the things that I did. You know, it makes complete sense why you'd feel that way. The reason behind this is that validation is the ultimate relationship tool to learn. When someone feels validated, it's extremely disarming. And all of those emotional defenses and walls that come up can slowly be start to lower. You know, when human beings feel truly heard, truly understood, their nervous system relaxes. Those defensive walls, the biological fight or flight responses deactivate. When you validate someone, when you validate your partner or your ex-partner, you start to tear down the emotional walls that prevent that connection. And deeply validating is so important. You know, this is one of the things that I work on with members, is learning how to validate deeply from an emotional place that builds emotional connection. The stronger that you can build this validation skill, the more that your partner will see the potential for a future relationship. And if you want to work with me on learning how to validate, how to repair a relationship in the right way in order to grow that relationship long-term, then join my relationship bootcamp. This is where all my members start with the fundamentals of how to repair and regrow a relationship from the ground up. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to grab your spot. So being able to validate the past allows you to open up the present. But in order to secure the future, in order to build that future, you have to execute the most crucial step of this meeting, which is laying the groundwork with actions over words. So one of the biggest mistakes that people make during these conversations is making empty promises about how you'll change, how you're going to change, how much you've learned, kind of bragging about all these things that you're doing, rather than letting those changes actually be felt through your behavior. Oftentimes during these conversations with your partner or your ex-partner, it can kind of culminate into trying to force them to commit to another meeting afterwards, like desperately sort of saying, I don't want this to be the last time that we see each other. What about the future? Or things are going to be different in the future. Let's keep meeting up to make sure that we are constantly building this relationship. During this meeting, it's important to let your calm demeanor, your validation skills, and your emotional control speak for your transformation, speak for your growth. Being able to end the meeting on a high note. Even if your partner or your ex-partner shows resistance or pushbacks, or even explicitly says, you know, I'm not ready to meet again, or I don't want to meet after this, make sure that you're leaving the door open without pressuring them into saying yes or no right there. So for example, if they say, I don't think we should do this again, I don't think we should meet again, don't beg, don't question it, don't try to persuade them. Be able to validate what they're saying, but still leave the door open. You know, for example, I can totally understand why this may feel awkward and the idea of meeting in the future may feel kind of wrong, or kind of almost like you may be worried about giving me like false hope about the relationship. So I completely respect that. From my side of things, the door is completely open. Whenever you're ready to talk, I'm here, but I completely understand if that may not be right now. The reason why this is so important is that true transformation, true growth of a relationship cannot be persuaded. It can't be logicked into existence. It must be experienced. It must be felt. So by being able to show that you respect their decision, but by also showing that you're not letting your ego get in the way of meeting up in the future. You're not saying, well, if you don't want to, then I don't want to. This proves that you have changed, that shows the potential of the future relationship, and it leaves a really powerful imprint of who the new you is, which kind of paradoxically forces them to question the separation or the breakup, and it actually triggers more curiosity about the new version of you. And it's important to be able to do this by detaching. I've actually done a deeper dive video on detachment and why it's so important to reconciliation, which I'll link to on the screen and in the description down below. But detaching is going to allow you to be able to keep calm and to be able to move through this conversation with the calm demeanor, but whilst also building this attraction back with you and your partner. So I won't dig into it here. I'll leave you with that deeper dive video, and I'll see you over there.